GPT-5.6 Luna, Kimi Code, and MiniMax M3 are the three names showing up in every coding agent thread right now. And I ran them through 5 head-to-head tests: cost, coding benchmarks, speed, context limits, and deployment, to see which one actually deserves your API key. The biggest surprise in the research isn't which model scored highest. It's that the cheapest option on paper turns out to be the most expensive one in practice once real usage gets involved. Let's start with the number every automation builder actually cares about, because a coding agent doesn't run once. It runs hundreds of times a day, and the per token price you glance at during signup becomes your entire monthly bill by week 2. According to official pricing, GPT 5.6 Luna charges 0.20 per million input tokens and 1.20 per million output tokens. MiniMax M3 sits close behind at 0.30 in and matches Luna at 1.20 out. Kimi Code, on the other hand, charges 0.95 per million input tokens and 4.4 euros per million output tokens. Official pricing again. That's not a small gap. Kimi Code is 3.3 times more expensive than Luna on output, the number that actually racks up during a long coding session. Here's where it gets messier. Kimi Code's input price looks competitive on a spec sheet, cheap enough that it gets marketed as the budget option. But that's only half the math. Community reports say Kimi Code burns through more tokens per task than its competitors, which means that cheaper-looking input rate gets eaten alive by volume. Combine a higher output price with heavier token consumption, and Kimi Code stops looking like the value pick. Cash pricing tells the same story. Luna's cash, red, comes in at 0.002 per million tokens, MiniMax M3 at 0.06, and Kimi Code at 0.19, nearly 10 times Luna's rate. If your agent is rereading the same code-based context across dozens of calls, that gap compounds fast. GPT 5.6 Luna wins this one clean. At roughly 500,000 output tokens a month, a realistic, moderate coding workload, Luna's API cost lands around 60 cents. One of the biggest problems I run into when using AI agents is turning their output into YouTube content I can actually use to market my product. That's why this video is sponsored by Subscriber, a tool that helps business owners connect their AI agents to YouTube and market their products without spending 10 hours every week creating content. You can connect Claude or ChatGPT directly to Subscriber. It then analyzes your business, website, and YouTube channel to help you create SEO-optimized video ideas, scripts, thumbnails, and even complete videos that actually match your brand. What I like most is that every week, Subscriber gives me a list of high-potential video ideas I can immediately execute, and it can even help edit videos for me, with or without my face, including videos like the one you're watching right now. It's easy to get started, and you can try Subscriber for free using the link in the description below. Now back to the video. 60 cents a month according to the official rate card. That's not a typo. My name is Brian, and I spend most of my week digging through AI products, benchmarks, APIs, and pricing pages to figure out where these tools actually differ. Price only matters if the model can actually write working code, so let's look at what these three measure against real software tasks. GPT 5.6 Luna posts a 93% score on SWE Bench Verified, the benchmark that grades models against real GitHub issues instead of toy problems. That's the strongest measured coding result in this entire comparison. MiniMax M3 scores 59.0% on SWE Bench Pro, a tougher variant of the same idea. A real result, but a much wider gap than the raw numbers suggest once you account for the harder test set. Kimi Code doesn't have a comparable SWE bench figure published. Its strongest self-reported number is 62.0 on Kimi Code Bench V2, which is a benchmark built and scored by the same company selling the model. There's one wrinkle worth flagging, honestly. On Terminal Bench 2.1, a K3 proxy score for Kimi Code hits 88.3%, actually ahead of Luna's 84.3%. MiniMax M3 also posts a 7.97 out of 10 average on Goldie Bench, a solid, well-rounded number that says it's a capable generalist rather than a coding specialist. GPT 5.6 Luna takes this test. A 93% verified score, backed by an independent aggregator, is the clearest evidence in the whole comparison. But that's a proxy measurement from a related model. not Kimi Code itself, so treat it as directional, not a head-to-head result. Coding agents live and die by how long you wait between prompt and output, especially when they're chaining calls in a loop. On raw output speed, Kimi Code's high-speed variant reportedly hits around 180 tokens per second, the fastest number in this test. Though it's a vendor claim and setups differ across sources, so I'm calling it directional. Luna measures at 186 tokens per second according to artificial analysis, close behind. MiniMax M3 trails both at roughly 82.8 tokens per second. But raw throughput isn't the whole picture. Time to first token matters just as much, arguably more, in an interactive coding session. MiniMax M3 wins this outright at 1.35 seconds, per artificial analysis, the fastest start of the three. Kimi Code's K3 proxy comes in around 2.8 to 3.0 seconds. Luna is the outlier here. Community reported at roughly 8 seconds before the first token appears, a real lag if you're iterating quickly. And here's a contradiction worth naming out loud. Community sentiment doesn't match Kimi Code's vendor speed claims at all. One recurring complaint calls Kimi Code slow F on its standard tier, which directly contradicts the 180 tokens per second high-speed number. That gap between what's marketed and what users actually experience is exactly why I'm treating this test as directional rather than settled. Kimi Code takes the raw speed test, but MiniMax M3 wins on the number that actually shapes how a session feels. Stick with me because the last 4 tests are where this decision actually flips. This is where a lot of automation workflows quietly break, not because the model is dumb, but because it runs out of room mid-task. On context window, Luna and MiniMax M3 tie at 1 million tokens, according to official documentation. Kimi Code caps out at 262,000 tokens, noticeably smaller, which matters if you're feeding an agent a large codebase in one shot. Max output is where this test flips entirely. MiniMax M3 supports up to 512,000 output tokens, community reported, 4 times larger than both Luna and Kimi Code, which each cap at 128,000 tokens. That difference matters specifically for long refactors or generating large files in a single pass without stitching multiple responses together. MiniMax M3 wins this test. It ties the context lead and blows past both competitors on how much it can actually hand back in one response. The last question is simple. Can you actually run this where you need to? And does it accept the inputs your workflow requires? Kimi Code ships under a modified MIT license, open weights, meaning full self-hosting and fine-tuning if your team needs that control. MiniMax M3 is also open weights. Luna is proprietary, API only through OpenAI, though it is the default model for free-tier ChatGPT users, which gives it the widest built-in distribution of the three. On modality, Kimi Code and MiniMax M3 both accept text, image, and video input. Luna is limited to text and image, no video. Kimi Code takes this test. Open weights plus the broadest input support gives it a real edge for teams that need to self-host or build multimodal coding agents. GPT-5.6 Luna wins on the numbers that matter for daily use. The strongest measured coding score at 93%, SWE bench verified, and the lowest price by a wide margin at 0.20 in and 1.20 out. Kimi Code wins on raw speed and deployment flexibility, open weights, video input, and a high-speed tier that claims 180 tokens per second. But its real-world cost and community sentiment tell a rougher story. MiniMax M3 is the steady all-rounder, the fastest to respond at 1.35 seconds, and the biggest output ceiling at 580,000 tokens, even though its coding benchmark trails the other two. Now, GPT-5.6 Luna wins on the numbers that matter for daily use. The strongest measured coding score at 93% SWE bench verified, and the lowest price by a wide margin at 0.20 in and 1.20 out. Kimi Code wins on raw speed and deployment flexibility, open weights, video input, and a high-speed tier that claims 180 tokens per second. But its real-world cost and community sentiment tell a rougher story. MiniMax M3 is the steady all-rounder, the fastest to respond at 1.35 seconds, and the biggest output ceiling at 512,000 tokens, even though its coding benchmark trails the other two. GPT-5.6 Luna wins on the numbers that matter for daily use. The strongest measured coding score at 93% SWE bench verified, and the lowest price by a wide margin at 0.20 in and 1.20 out. Kimi Code wins on raw speed and deployment flexibility, open weights, video input, and a high-speed tier that claims 180 tokens per second, but its real-world cost and community sentiment tell a rougher story. MiniMax M3 is the steady all-rounder, the fastest to respond at 1.35 seconds, and the biggest output ceiling at 512,000 tokens, even though its coding benchmark trails the other two. GPT-5.6 Luna is the winner here, and it's not. Now, GPT-5.6 Luna is the winner here, and it's not. If this helped, the next breakdown on the channel goes even deeper.